Hi, I'm Ifascope Nash, and this is the embodied awareness, the movement awareness exercise that goes with my reading of the reading for the week from the weekly Ifascope for March 31st, 2018. Brief review. Before I do that, I'm assuming that you've already listened to and watched the video introducing you to how to do the movement work. Okay, I'm not going to go through what props you need and da-da-da every time. I'm just going to do the lesson. So this lesson today relates to the primary Odu Osameji, an Odu belonging to Oya. The reading comes EB with Osameji again, and unsurprisingly the Ibo is to Oya with Oshimeji, and the Ibo is a pinwheel to be placed outside somewhere where the wind can move it. So, what do we need to do this week? We need to let the wind move us. We need to allow ourselves not only to adapt to change, but to be change. Okay, this is not a passive kind of reading. We need to equip ourselves to truly be the change we want to see, and to learn how to face the fight that might come to us when we step up to do that, even though it may make us uncomfortable. That's what we're aiming to embody in working with these movements this week. Okay, so as usual, you want to start off with a scan on the back. Most of you will want support under your head. I don't like that. You can lie with your legs long or your knees bent. Whatever feels better to you. We call this base camp. So you're in base camp. Notice what you notice. What parts of you are touching the surface underneath you? Right, you might as well just listen to this because it's the boringest thing in the world to watch a lot of the time, because there's just all these pauses. Right, okay, what am I doing? I'm just noticing. Okay, where are my feet touching? Where do I feel pressure and how much in my pelvis? Where am I touching in my back? Where am I not touching in my back? Where exactly are my arms and hands touching the floor? It's often interesting to switch between eyes open and eyes closed and notice how what you notice changes. Now, Oya is the wind, Oya is the breath. So we often start these lessons with noticing where do you feel the movement of the breath, but it's particularly important because we're working with Oya. So tune in. Where do you feel the movement of your breath? It seems like a simple question, but it's not really, because, first of all, if you're breathing through your nose, you might feel the breath at your nose. Or if you're breathing through your mouth, you might feel the breath at your lips, at your tongue, or maybe you notice it first in your belly. But in fact, because of the way all of our soft tissue is connected, everything is actually moving when you breathe. It's really a matter of, are you sensitive to that? Where are you sensitive to the movement of the breath? Now, Oya is an Orisha who is known, when she manifests herself in human form, often to appear with one side of her
as a very young woman, beautiful in the way we usually think of a woman as being beautiful, and the other side as an old hag. So it's very, very appropriate when working with Oya to, as we always do, but again, excuse me, to emphasize any differences that you might feel in your sides. Does one side of your belly or one side of your ribs feel more receptive to the movement of the breath? And sides also means front and back. Are you aware of the movement of the breath in your back? And people often get into this confusion in the beginning of doing this work, coming in from the modern mentality, like, well, you know, I started noticing my breath and then like automatically it changed. And, you know, we say a lot of things like, try not to change it. Right, which means try not to force it. Try not to make your breath fit some, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be breathing in my belly. Right, okay, right, but the reality is that awareness does change things. That's actually the nature of this reality. So yes, we turn our awareness to something and the world changes. Just notice what happens. Try not to get involved with wondering whether it's right or wrong, because that doesn't really exist in here. Right, Oya is vaster than the human mind. She wants us to be vaster than our minds alone. Right? It's not always good or bad or right or wrong. I can figure this out. I can get the rules. I can know what to do. It's going to be okay if I do this. Whoosh. Sometimes what you thought was the most right thing in the world is exactly the wrong thing. Who are you going to listen to? Your mind or your whole integrated self? Your mind or your self plus your spiritual allies? Okay, so after you've kind of gotten a sense of yourself lying on the back, ideally, I just said there was no right or wrong, and there isn't, but ideally, we would be able to do this next piece of work kneeling on the legs and hands. But I know, because I've taught an awfully lot of people this work, that an awful lot of modern people are immediately uncomfortable. As soon as we're here, it's like, oh my gosh, my wrists, my knees, my back, my neck. Oh my God. Right, we can't wait to get out of this position. Now, isn't that interesting? We modern people sitting on top of the world, consuming more than our fair share of resources, making 200 species go extinct every day. We can't stand to be on our hands and knees. We can't stand, literally, to be down here like the animals, like our older relations, like our ancestors. Uh-oh! Are we likely to be able to relate ideally with them if we can't even be here comfortably for this length of time? And you might say, I can do this comfortably! That's what modern people do. I'm perfectly comfortable! I don't know what you're talking about! Okay, be honest, okay? It's just you, your soul, Oya, in here, okay? Most likely, unless you do a lot of stuff to grow yourself physically and you're over 25, this is not so comfortable, okay? Fine. There are other ways to work with it. But if you're working in Ifa and you're doing this work to grow yourself in faithfulness to this wisdom tradition, you got to realize, look, this is a wisdom tradition that's been passing down its teachings primarily in the form of rhythm, song, and story for 10,000 years. That's why the tradition continues to live and grow and transmit itself faithfully in essence in a vastly changed and changing world. This matters, okay? But you can't work where you can't be comfortable. So here's some alternatives. I really like this one. If you happen to be a gym ball person, yay! A gym ball is a great friend here. If you're not a gym ball person already, and you can borrow one, try one out, I do recommend them. But this is the kind of thing, look, what is this made of, right? It's made of some kind of fossil fuel. Does everybody need to have 1, 3, 4, 5, 6? Or maybe should we be sharing these things? Does Oya call us to think about these things? I think so. Okay, so if you can get access to this, this is a great tool. And you can see that you need it to be properly proportional to you. Okay, what you're trying to do is approximate being on your hands and knees without having so much pressure on your hands and knees, getting some support for your core so that you can feel lighter here. But if it's too big, you won't be able to do the next part, because the next part is to get your head to the ground without, it would be ideal if you could get your head to the ground without any part of your knees, legs, and feet leaving the ground. It's acceptable, it'll work in the lesson for you to get the head, the crown, the ori. Get your crown on the floor, people. Flip it upside down, let Oya turn you around. Okay, and make it fun. Okay, the crown of the head has to get to the floor with some part of your feet and ankles at least on the floor, palms of your hands on the floor. Okay, you don't have a gym ball. You don't want a gym ball. You don't like plastic! There are some other alternatives depending on your stature. If you have like a footrest, you know, you sit on the couch, you put your feet up on a nice, my grandmother used to call them ottomans, right? You have a nice ottoman, that might work for you. You might be able to lay over it and get this support for your middle very, very nicely. You can do a pretty good job sometimes with a big bunch of rolled up blankets, but it has to be firm, okay? Try different things out. Or, if you're like, you're kind of close to being comfortable on your hands and knees, but not quite. And the idea of doing this is like, oh dear. Then you could also try forearms and hands, okay? These instructions will work in any of these situations. Experiment until you find something that you can have a little fun with, where you can breathe, okay? So, you're gonna put your hand, I'm gonna go with the ball just because I feel like it. How about that? Ecocentric, right? It has to be good for everybody. It has to be good for me too. Or I'm not giving you the best medicine. So, get your head on the floor. Your ori, where is it really? And what happens? Are you like me? Do you immediately want to tuck your toes underneath, like, so you can push? Or do you want to leave your toes stretched out? What happens with your breathing? Do you feel you're breathing somewhere different? I certainly hope you feel you're breathing somewhere different than you did when you were lying on your back, especially if you're smushing yourself into a gym ball. And just play around a little bit. See if you can trace on the mat, where exactly is my ori? Right? If I was going to give myself, or tell somebody like, this spot right here, this is where my head cleaning needs to go. This is it. Where is it? Very gently. Just a little minute to see how it feels, especially if you're supporting more of your weight, you're on your hands and knees, or you're on your knees and forearms. Don't stay long. Come back to base camp. notice if anything's different. If it's not, guess what? Most likely you're working too hard. The other possibility is, you're not settled in yet to noticing the kinds of changes that these movements bring. You're not settled in today, you're not settled into the practice yet. Doesn't matter. The body will figure it out. Keep going. Just notice what you notice, and then come on back. Now, even though Arumila, even though Oya are asking us to be change agents in a big way this week, that doesn't mean we can get there all at once, right? So we're going to break the movements down so the deep body can learn, so we can really learn to walk different and breathe different. Okay, so this time, when you get in whatever approximation of this position, hands and knees, that you want to work with, and you get your re to the ground, you're just going to, for 9 breaths, Oya's number, pay attention specifically to the feeling of the movement along your back, along the middle where your spine is, the sides of the back where the ribs are, the muscles feel the movement of the breath in your back. And the back goes all the way up to the crown of your head, to the base of your skull as well. And definitely if you lose count, you don't know where 9 is, you're a loser. Okay, feel really terrible about yourself and give up now. No. Okay, it happens all the time. Just notice what happens, right? And then come back down. Did anything change? Just from putting your head on the floor or something. If you're an adult, you probably haven't done a lot of. Maybe you're a yoga person, you do it regularly. You still might have found something new. What did that little bit of attention to the movement of the breath in your back do for your experience of lying here in base camp? Physically, do you feel changes? Emotionally, do you feel changes? You might feel different about these odus. You might feel differently about who knows what. Mentally, you might notice a change in the pace of your thoughts or what you're thinking about. Spiritually, hopefully you feel a little better connected. Try it every day this week and see what happens. Just that. Ashe, ashe, ashe.